All right, Lourdes, should we get started?
Let's get it started.
Started. All right. Hi, everybody. We're so happy to be with you today on Zoom for our second a formal session all about our handbook. And today we're going to be talking about Student Code of Conduct, which is a part of our handbook that we want to make sure that everyone feels like they have the information about, and you know what's in our Student Code of Conduct and our handbook overall. As a reminder, Lourdes sort of already established these meeting norms, but we want to make sure that we are marking attendance by you putting in the chat your student's name and grade. Please try to pay attention to the information that's shared, but additionally, all of the materials will be available online. The handbook is on our student website, so our school website, so you're able to access that there. But also this meeting's recorded, and you'll be able to watch it again if you have specific questions. We're going to wait to leave questions at the end. We know that there might be some questions or points of clarification. We're going to answer questions at the very end of this session, so please try to hold on and listen through the information, and then we'll get to questions at the end. And then finally, it's really important to us that we protect student privacy, both your student and all of the students represented on this call. And so if you have any personal questions about your child or other students, please contact us after the meeting at 646-906-4111. All right. So first and foremost, we want to say welcome back. As I started at the beginning, we are in part 2 of our family handbook series. All of the schools have handbooks that are posted online. You can see our 24-25 handbook covers there. The goal of these sessions are to familiarize families with our handbook. We want to make sure that families know the expectation of our student body and of families. And then we want to establish early partnerships with you in order to make sure that you feel a sense of belonging in our community and that you know who to go to for what. So your questions are being answered and you feel supported. We wanted to remind everybody that when we're talking about school safety, handbooks, expectations, it's all within the framework of thinking about our school being a safe and orderly environment. And we wanted to sort of remind and share that as a school, we are a nationally certified school that is safe and supportive under the Marzano framework, which is a huge win for us and something we're really proud of. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that again, that we have gone through a certification process and are proud to be nationally certified as a safe and collaborative school. Today, we're talking about the Student Code of Conduct. Next Wednesday, you'll be with Tatiana talking about the Inwood student overall. Upon completion of our series, families will sign a document saying that they've attended all sessions, either live or watched them on YouTube, and that you understand the handbook. We want to make sure that you really understand all of the foundations of the handbook, all of the key elements, and that you don't have any questions. And so at the end of this, we're going to make sure that all families have signed off, that they read and understood the handbook. So today we're going to focus on school-wide expectations, code of conduct, due process and investigations, and finally, confidentiality. So when it comes to school-wide expectations, we want to frame this within the 5 core values we have as a school. We focus on character education as a part of our mission and our vision for all students. And so we have 5 core character traits that we operate within and talk to students about developing, right? So a student who goes to Inwood Academy is caring, acts with restraint, is responsible, has integrity, and is honest. These values sort of frame all of the conversations we have with students about behavior within the classroom setting, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in lunch, in bathrooms, but it's also the way in which we talk to students if they're struggling with something too. So if a student maybe called out or was a bit disruptive in class, the conversation they would then have with the dean or with a teacher would be about restraint, right? Or if we missed a homework assignment, we might talk to a student about being responsible. And so we share those values because we want you to share the same language we do when it comes to how we talk to students about their behavior. Making sure that we are living within our core values and that students are learning what the values mean and how to exemplify them every single day. These core values are also taught in our advisory sessions. And so students get explicit instruction about what the core values are and what this looks like on a daily basis. And this is what we're teaching in the month of September. So just so you know, when you're talking to your child about behavior, these is the language we're using, and we invite you to use it as well. All three sites then take those core values and think about school-wide expectations for all environments based on the core value itself. So here you have got the copies of the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school expectations, the core values at the top, which I just shared for you, but then you can see that each setting has specified language around what the different expectation is in that setting. So if you look at the high school expectations over here, you've got all settings, hallways, lunch, and the student support office, and thinking about how we act with care, with restraint, with responsibility, with integrity, and with honesty in all of those spaces. We wanted to reiterate for all of you, I think this was gone over a few weeks ago, but another all school expectation is that we are a uniform school. So all students grades K through 12 have a uniform. The expectation is that students show up to school in a uniform and remain in uniform all day. Students who need a loaner will be provided one for the day, and families will be communicated with if this is the case to ensure that families have what they need for uniform. One of the ways we create a sense of belonging is that we all wear the same uniform and we show up to school together representing that school and our character traits. And so it's very important to us that all students are in uniform every single day. I know that there were gift cards that were sent out to families in the summertime in order to support buying uniform items on Land's End. But additionally, if you need additional help and support, please don't hesitate to reach out to the FACE office. Let them know what you might need so we can make sure that your child is arriving to school wearing what they need to be wearing. Another all school expectation that we just wanted to reiterate is that being on time and in class matters. Tatiana talked to you guys about this a few weeks ago, but on-time attendance really, really impacts students' ability to center in and focus in on the day, right? So we want to make sure that students are ready and at school when their day starts, and that they're in classes as well when school begins. The only other school-wide expectation we wanted to go over with everybody is just a reminder that we are a cell phone-free environment. Cell phones have acted as a major distraction for students during the school day. It can impact students' psychological safety in school if they're scrolling social media or having conversations with friends on social media. And we, like many schools in the nation and New York City, have decided that because of this, we're going to be a cell phone-free environment. At the middle school, that means that students put their cell phone in a bin at homeroom and get that cell phone back at the end of the day. At the high school, this means that students yonder their cell phones in at entry and yonder out at dismissal. If a senior is leaving for lunch, they yonder out as well and then yonder back in. That's a safety requirement for students being able to leave because we want to make sure that they know what time it is and that they have a way to safely communicate if they're out for lunch. Lunch privileges are starting soon at the high school, but all students yonder in and yonder out, which is a change back to our previous cell phone policy. We also wanted to highlight that those yonder pouches are things that we as a school purchase for all students and expect students to sort of keep and maintain throughout the year. If a student damages a yonder pouch, and this is not, I don't mean a stain on a yonder pouch or maybe a piece of writing, but if a student breaks open their yonder pouch or destroys it in some way, they will need to replace that pouch for $30, and that will go through Alma as well. But we just wanted to make it clear that we know that wear and tear can happen. You might have a coffee stain on it or something like that, but if a yonder pouch is damaged because a student is trying to open up and get their phone out, they will have to pay for a new yonder pouch. So now we kind of jump into the code of conduct, which is towards the end of the student handbook. In our handbook, there's a section that's called the Student Code of Conduct, and this is created in order to be clear with students about what is expected of students every day, as well as outline what is not allowed. What you'll notice about our Code of Conduct is that there are infractions listed, as well as potential consequences or next steps for any student violating the Code of Conduct. Our goal as a discipline team and as a school is always to support our students and help them understand the impact their behavior has on the school community. Due to this, we apply restorative approaches to discipline action while also following a progressive model of discipline. So we do try to take a restorative mindset when dealing with student behavior, but also have a progressive model of discipline where interacting and having a conversation the first time for something looks a little bit different than the fourth or fifth time a behavior might happen, right? So we have a progression based on the amount of times something might have happened with a student. The levels of infraction are something to note is that this is what you will see in the Code of Conduct. There are 5 levels or sections based on the severity of each infraction. So a level 1 behavior would be something that's uncooperative or non-compliant. A level 2 would be disorderly behavior. A level 3, disruptive behavior. Level 4, aggressive or injurious, harmful behavior. And then finally, level 5, seriously dangerous or violent behavior. Level 1 and 2 infractions tend to be handled within the instructional environment. That means by teachers, right? So uncooperative, non-compliant behavior, disorderly behavior, that tends to be handled by the teacher team. Levels 3 can be handled by both the teachers and the deans. And then finally, level 4 and 5 tend to be handled by deans and school administrative staff. Those aggressive or injurious, harmful behaviors, as well as seriously dangerous or violent behaviors, those tend to be handled by our student support team and administration. Repeat violations of the handbook may result in progressive discipline needing to be taken, right? So if we're consistently struggling with different behaviors and showing repeat offenses and repeat infractions, then the team will take a progressive discipline approach in order to handle that, meaning that the severity might change based on the frequency with which we see behavior. Though that handbook applies to in school, but we also want to make clear that it applies to outside of school. So school-related disciplinary offenses can happen outside of the school that could reasonably affect the school or the learning environment. So as a school administrative team, we use professional judgment in order to determine what action would be most effective in dealing with student misconduct, taking into account a student's age and maturity level, the nature and seriousness of infraction and circumstances which led to that infraction, a student's previous disciplinary record, the effectiveness of other forms of discipline, information from parents, teachers, and others is appropriate, and finally, the student's attitude and other relevant factors. So when the team is making a disciplinary choice, those are all things that they come into mind as they're making disciplinary decisions about what to do. Additionally, I just want to state that, again, the handbook applies to incidents that happen within the school building, but also apply to incidents that happen outside that could impact the learning environment. So if an incident occurs after dismissal, but still impacts the learning environment or students within the school day, then those students are subject to disciplinary action within the school day as well. Prohibited materials. So we wanted to be very clear with all families about prohibited materials that are in or could be brought into school to make sure that all students are coming only with things that are allowed during the school day. Students are not permitted under any circumstances to bring weapons, drugs, alcohol, lighters, brass knuckles, mace, anything like that into the school building. Those materials make our school building unsafe and will be immediately confiscated and not given back to students or families because they are unallowed materials. So I want to state that one more time. All tobacco, lighters, brass knuckles, mace, drugs, alcohol, weapons, anything that is confiscated and is named as being prohibited will be taken from the students and will not be given back to families or students because they're prohibited in the school building. Depending on the material, we may also need to contact authorities based on the New York City Department of Education requirements. If that's the case, families will be alerted based on that, but it really depends on what a student might bring to school. But if they bring something that the DOE has determined needs to be contacted, we might have to contact authorities, but again, we'll let you know first. A list of the comprehensive prohibited materials are listed in the handbook. I wanted to be really explicit about drugs, tobacco, and alcohol because we are noticing what I think many families are noticing too in the neighborhood is that we are surrounded by places where it's easy for students to get these materials. Even though we certainly don't want them to, we're noticing at the bodegas and things like that, there's an ease and ability to buy tobacco or potentially buy other prohibited substances. Our goal is to respond to all students and make sure that they're getting what they need, which we know that vapes and marijuana are available in our community, but want to partner with you to make sure that you know that if students bring those into school, it's a prohibited material and we will be responding. But additionally, I know that the FACE department does a lot of work in the community to talk about the sale of different items to teens. And so I encourage you to work with the FACE department to continue to advocate for a safe community. I don't know, Lourdes, if you wanted to add anything to that in terms of the work you guys do.
Yes, we do have our family council who has an advocacy team, and they are very vigilant within the community. So if anyone is interested in partnering up with them, just to go to our representatives in our neighborhood, in our communities to speak with them about our concerns, about having these smoke shops around the school buildings, about having them so easily accessible. it's not just our school building, it's other community schools that are around us. We definitely encourage you to connect with our family council. The more the merrier, and the bigger impact that we can have. Right now, we have two parents who are leading that initiative. But it would be great if we could get at least a group of 10, or even signatures. We would be happy to support with that. So if you're interested, just please reach out to me via email or phone, and we will be happy to support you guys with the addresses of our representatives.
Yes, thank you so much, Lourdes. I know it's been really amazing work. The team's working really, really hard, and it's on, I think, not only our school's mind, but we know it's on your minds as well. And so we're continuing that work with the advocacy team. Okay, so why the code of conduct? The code of conduct is sort of an agreement between students and the school. It states for us to share with students, here's what's expected, and for students to understand that they know what's expected of them and what is and isn't allowed, right? We can't meet expectations unless we're clear on what the expectation is. By having our code of conduct accessible to students and families, as well as delivering sessions like this to families and to students get similar sessions, we're able to ensure that our expectations are clear. Our goal is to enforce that all students feel safe at school. And one of the ways we ensure that they feel safe is by being clear with all families and students about what is and what isn't allowed at school. So let's talk a little bit about, we've got the code of conduct. What happens if there has been a handbook violation? If a student has done something that then results in potential need for disciplinary action. So when a rule is broken or an infraction occurs, we follow due process in order to understand what happened. So a due process of investigation is a student's legal right to a safe and fair investigation to determine what the next course of action should be. This investigation looks like checking cameras, getting student statements, teacher statements, and speaking with all students and parents involved, or all parties involved and impacted. And so if an incident occurs, our team immediately begins to de-escalate the situation and investigate the situation. And that investigation can sometimes take time because we want to make sure we're hearing from every single party that was a part of the investigation or in a part of the infraction or thing that happened, or saw or bared witness to. And so we want to make sure that we're getting all perspectives. Accountability is our key focus, right? So we want to ensure that we have a full picture of what happened so that students can have a consequence that then helps them repair the harm that was done. So sometimes this can take time. Additionally, something to note is that during the investigation process, we note if a student has an IEP, because that then might trigger a manifestation determination review or an MDR with the CSE in order to determine if the behavior was a manifestation of a student's IEP. So consequences and repairing the harm. So we want to make sure that there's action taken for all students who do not meet our behavioral expectations or have an incident that occurs at school. But we want to make sure that these consequences meet the needs of students and that they're addressing the harm that was done. Once an investigation is conducted, our discipline team asks themselves what harm was done, what do we need to repair the harm? And this could result in community service, mediations, reflections and apologies, circles, suspensions, after school meetings, during the day reflections, or family meetings. The team really spends time thinking about getting a full picture of what happened, and then what's the best way to repair the harm? What's the best way to learn from this so that this one infraction is sort of the catalyst for learning, and it's a moment for us to take a second pause and think, what happened and how can I fix this moving forward? The goal of the consequences is that we want all disciplinary action to really focus on student accountability. So we believe students will only learn and challenge behavior once they fully own their part of what happens. And that's what the discipline team really is working on, is making sure that whatever consequences occurring, that they are taking accountability for what happened and owning their part about what happened and how to make it right. Due to this, not all consequences will look the same, as actions taken by students are not the same. So our team works in collaboration with one another to ensure that the consequence for any given infraction matches the harm that was done and the impact it has. I can speak personally and share that the discipline team works diligently to make sure that the behavioral consequences for anything that occurs are thoughtful and focus on equity, making sure that students are getting what they need and that they're being reflective and held accountable for what went wrong and what part they played in it. So then we come to confidentiality, which we began with just in our Zoom meeting today. But confidentiality is very important to us. So when something occurs, we want to make sure that we're communicating with all families what happened and what the next steps are. Sometimes that means that multiple families might be contacted regarding the same incident that happens at a school, right? This could involve your child and another child. And we want to listen to and hear and talk to you about your child and the impact this incident had on you guys. Now, the problem is that sometimes you might want to know what happened to the other student, but we can't share what happened to the other student because we want to make sure that we're keeping information confidential. And that can be frustrating at sometimes, right? Because we're trying to make sure we're protecting all students. Just as we would never share your child's information with another parent, we're not going to share their information with you. So we don't share any confidential information with anyone but the family and the student themselves. And thus, we're not going to share consequences with students explicitly about other families, right? So if something occurs with your child and another child, we cannot let you know what the consequence was. We can share that there was a consequence, but we cannot be specific about what that was because we want to protect all children's confidentiality. So with all of that in light, we want to just stress that we are here to support. So next week, we're going to speak specifically about how you can holistically help your child. But if you're worried about behavior, discipline, or other social emotional needs of your child, please feel free to reach out to us. We're collaborators in this process. That's it formally for today of our presentation going over the Code of Conduct. Again, the Code of Conduct is posted in the handbook, which is available online for you to see all of the different infractions that are listed there that fall under all 5 of the different levels. But we wanted to go through the disciplinary process and talk about what the Code of Conduct is, and then what happens if a student violates the Code of Conduct. So that's it for our formal questions today. I'm going to stop sharing and then invite anyone who has any questions